schedule is a little weird because we're off Monday for President's Day. Tuesday is virtual for everybody. And then Wednesday is A Day and Thursday's B Day. Yeah, so don't forget that.
Yes, your dress is really cute.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about our bell ringer question, and then we'll dive into all of our fun stuff. I hate when this thing does that. Nope, that's not okay. There it is. Okay. All right, so bell ringer question review from yesterday. What are some changes that progressives want to make? So we talked about a lot yesterday. We talked about political reforms like primaries and secret ballots and recalls and initiatives. And that was actually some of the IDs that you had for this section. So we talked about getting rid of alcohol. That was a big one with the 18th Amendment. We talked about giving women the right to vote. That's another big change. We talked about, you can list any of them, social changes, political changes, economic changes, and give me an example to be able to get your response for your bell ringer. So here again, giving women the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. Political changes, recalls and initiatives and referendums, any of those terms that are on that ID sheet from yesterday. And then alcohol, we said alcohol in the 18th Amendment. What complaints, what was the reason for why we think getting rid of alcohol was solved?
Drink and drive.
Say it again.
Drink and drive at a young age.
Well, this is right before cars.
Abuse.
How was it?
Right, people abusing it. Yes, people spend all their paycheck on going to bars, and they said that it was causing problems at work. They were being abusive to their family, that it was causing all these problems.
And then they found out that they could get more taxes if they were selling, so they kept brought it back.
Yeah, I know it's probably not the best reason, but it is the truth, though. The federal government realized how much money they were losing on tax revenue, and they're like, we're going to bring it back. Yeah, we're going to bring it back. So it lasted
It's not like they
whole...
stopped it in the first place anyway.
Well, here's what's interesting. Okay, so I know that we have had some bad presidents, but you know a law is not a good law if even the president doesn't obey it. Because it was Warren G. Harding that was in office during Prohibition, and he always would say, you can't play cards without a gin and tonic. And he always made sure to keep the wine cellar full and everything while he was in the White House. So granted, yeah, he was not a good president, but you know, if even the president cannot abide by the new law, it's probably not a good one. So anyway, okay. So any questions before we get going about what's coming up for next week's schedule? Anything? If not, then we're gonna just jump straight into it. Okay.
How did the law get passed through if he didn't think it was a good idea?
It's a previous.
Yeah, he wasn't in office when it came through. But he was just not a good president. He had like scandals that happened under his presidency. Ooh, fun fact. Okay, so he did die in office due to what was claimed to be natural causes, and his wife would not let them do an autopsy on the body to figure out as to why he died. And it was suspected that she poisoned him because she knew that he was having an affair. So anyway. Fun story. All right, let's get into your info for our new unit. If you have that packet of notes and you want to follow along with me as we go over it, yesterday we introed into it and started talking about a few things, and I've got some good stories to share with what we go over today. So if you've ever thought about why things are set up the way they are, it's usually because something's happened for us to create those new laws. We got anybody that works in the fast food industry in here? Yeah. Okay. All right. What are the grades that restaurants are given based off of? What's it based off of?
That's up like cleanliness, mainly cleanliness, and if like the food is good or bad, but they do get you for some dumb stuff too, that you can't like help because it's like your owners. We have a 99 at our store, so I don't know what else.
Yeah, that's great though. But think about how things were before we put all these regulations in place. And so we're going to talk about it here. Fun fact, did you know that you can actually go to the FDA's website, Food and Drug? You can go to their website and they have listed out for you what is safe to be found in your food. Like for chocolate, for example, it is safe for there to be 20 or more insect legs found in your chocolate bar. It is safe for you to find in your jar of mushrooms, rat feces. It is safe for you to find, they just have, again, it doesn't matter, chips, they have a whole entire list because, and I don't know whose job that was. I would not want that job. If that was your job to go through and like try stuff and be like, I didn't die from it. It had maggots in it and I'm still okay. So we'll check that off, you know? Not it.
There's an article about like, in middle school, we got made to read this article, and it was like peanut butter had like ants in it and stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was like, because you can't keep like roaches and stuff out, but not for long because that's food.
They
There's
get
food,
in.
don't
I
get
don't know how they
in.
get it, but they get in.
So,
Yeah.
you can't go, you can get exterminators out there, but they're still gonna come back every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's virtually impossible to keep everything 100% clean and clear and all the things, you know? Because think about, before we had these people to investigate and we measures in place, you know, washing hands, wearing hair nets and wearing aprons and all the things, you know, with everything we have set in place today, there's still things that are found. Like, for example, oh my God, my husband has the worst luck. He went one time and got a hot dog from somewhere and it had a bolt in it. Like he crunched down on it. I don't know how he didn't bust out his molar, but he did. He crunched down on it and had a bolt inside.
My thing is, how does stuff like that get into food though? Like, I understand bugs and stuff, but like something you can control, like how does that get into food?
Screw out machines.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's modern technology. And then another one was like an inch long acrylic nail.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've seen that post where like that's why in most places you can't have acrylic nails because they fall off easily.
Yeah.
And actually at my store, this girl's acrylic nail fell off, and one of my coworkers seen it before like we started serving food,
Oh God.
and she like flipped out on this girl. She was like, "You have to be careful," like.
Oh. Yep.
But she got fired, so.
Oh. Okay. Oh no.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know, it happens. It happens. But all those safety measures that we have put in place today, again, trying to make sure things are as clean as possible, happened because of these people. All right. In particular, that was thanks to Upton Sinclair, because he went undercover to go inside of a meat plant, a meat processing plant. And he's writing down everything that he sees. You know, he sees these guys that, you know, there is no such thing as just taking bathroom breaks. So they were like running outside the back door and doing their thing and then running back and then continuing to touch all the things and stuff, you know. And if you're in a hurry and my finger gets chopped off because I'm moving too fast, you know, they just let it keep going. Your finger is now getting mixed up in whatever meat that is, and it's about to be processed and put on somebody's plate, you know, and we're not taking stuff like that out. So anyway, that happens because he goes into that meat plant and later writes a book about it, about what he sees. And now the family that he writes about in that book is a historical family, like he just makes them up. But what they're experiencing in that meat plant is what he actually witnessed while he was there. And he said that the back of the plant, they had this, I don't even know what kind of machine it was, but all the bones that were left over from the animals after they processed the meat, they were grinding up the bone because they didn't have anywhere to just chunk a pile of bones. They were grinding it up to just get rid of it. But dust particles are really thick, and whenever you breathe them in, they are so thick they were burrowing holes in people's lungs, and people were dying from the inside out. And this is during a time period where kids are working in factories, and so you were pretty much sentencing yourself to death if you had to work in that part of the factory. It was just, you were going to die. It was just a matter of how long it took to kill you, you know, and how awful a death that would be. But we call these people muckrakers because they're raking up the muck. They're exposing the bad, right? Like Ida Tarbell writes about Rockefeller, this big millionaire and billionaire, and how he makes his money. He's like, what is it called? Price gouging. He's price gouging his oil and selling it for higher than what it should be, and he's watering some of it down. So she ends up exposing him, and he has to go to federal court over it. Now, you know, he's probably just, you know, shoveling out a few extra $100,000, and he's like, no big deal, you know, but that's because he can afford that. And then Lincoln Steffens writes a book about political corruption. So all these people are trying to expose all the bad, horrible stuff so that we can get change and positive change. All right, so if you have the pack of notes, we're going to the very next page, and we're not going to have time to look at all of it. We're going to hop and skip around because I got some more stories that I want to share about a few things. Okay, so Lincoln Steffens goes inside of or Upton Sinclair, wrong person, goes inside a hog processing station. Does anybody happen to know how they do it today? So I went to have Goodwin, but I keep forgetting that he's got a second and third block, so he couldn't come in here and talk about it. But they say that you try to kill the animal to where they're in more of a relaxed state, so that, you know, if they're stressed, it'll send out a surge of adrenaline, and that can sometimes taint the meat, and the meat not taste as good. And so today, they have it to where, for example, we're going to talk about hogs. So they have all the pigs that are being pushed, and they end up getting them to go up these conveyor belts. And when they get, and so it's holding them to where they can't move. When they get to the end of the conveyor belt, no lie, there is a person whose job is to tase them once they get to the end of that conveyor belt. So they tase them, and it knocks the pig unconscious. They're not dead, they're just unconscious. So, right, well, yeah, that's what's coming. So they're knocked unconscious to where they can't freak out for what's coming next, because as soon as they tase them and it knocks them out, then they start going this way and they flip them upside down, and somebody's job is to like hook them to where they're hanging up by their feet. Yeah. And then after that, that's when they get their neck slit and they'll bleed out. To where, you know, they're unconscious, so they're not freaking out, but that's how they eventually kill them. And then they've preserved the meat, and then from there they'll have somebody else's job to where they split them open, and then from there they just kind of start dissecting them, like taking, you know, chunks at a time. You know, they cut the head off, and the head process is somewhere different because I didn't know. I don't eat tongue or eyes or ears, but apparently people do, because they literally do like chunk everything out.
I've heard that most Hispanics do that with like whenever they have like beef and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They eat cow tongue, and like they'll put like they'll put the pig's head.
I'm sure it sounds worse than it really is.
And they'll eat it. I could not start eating something that's looking at me, even though it's not alive. It's still looking at me.
Yeah, that would, for me, is more of a mental thing. I don't know that.
Yeah, it probably tastes fine. It's just
You
The
have to like
idea
put
of
it in
eating a
stew.
tongue.
Right.
is-
Right.
Don't tell me that I'm eating it.
Yeah. If I don't know what I'm eating and it tastes good, then I'll probably be okay.
Sure.
As long as it won't kill me, then I'll be alright.
Oh, we'll just go with that. We'll go with that. All right, here's what I want. And if you have the packet of notes, this whole entire box is stuff that we're going to be tested and quizzed on and all the things. And most of these, I'm pretty sure, are actually on your ID list. And I think, Austin, I need to get,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I think I didn't have in that little stack of stuff.
Yeah, I was looking for it. I was like,
Yeah, because all it is just the IDs.
Oh, okay.
There's no section questions this time. So let's go through and talk about these individual pieces, because this is what you're probably, not what you're probably, what you are going to be tested on. All right, direct primaries. Here's what it is. So a direct primary for North Carolina happens in May every 2 to 4 years, depending on if we have like a midterm election. So if you are a registered party member, if you're a registered Republican, registered Democrat, registered Independent, that means you can go in, and if they've got 7 people running for the Republican nominee or Democrat nominee or whatever, you get to vote and choose the one person to represent that political party, so that you're not trying to choose between 25 people at the end of the general election, and they want it to be just registered party members. They don't want somebody coming in that doesn't care and is just randomly selecting somebody. So direct primaries, where you get to actually pick the candidate that you want, and then initiatives and referendums. So an initiative is if I, the voter, wanted to vote or wanted to pick something. Here's what I'm saying. If I went in last November and I wrote on the ballot that I want a 4-day school week, Monday through Thursday is good enough, 4-day school week, that's what I want. That's what an initiative is, that I, as the citizen, can write that down and propose that maybe our guys in Raleigh consider that. Now, they might look at it, they might not, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes in there probably that they just never see.
Right, yeah, but it can always happen. A referendum is if, hey, what about the General Assembly in Raleigh comes up with a big idea, and they're like, hey, what about a 4-day school week? We'll see how the citizens feel about that. And a referendum means that I can vote directly on the ballot if I want that. I can vote yes or I can vote no. So if it's on the ballot for me to vote for, that's a referendum. And then what about if somebody's not doing their job? Let's say we don't think the mayor or city council or governor, or we don't think somebody's doing their job, we can actually call for a recall. And a recall is a vote to remove an elected official from office. And then, last but not least, is number 17, which is voting directly for senators. Because before the 17th Amendment, it was politicians picking other politicians. You know how we talked about how corrupt this time period is, and people are only in the jobs because they want the power and money. So the 17th Amendment means now you and I, as the citizens, can vote who we want to represent us in Washington, D.C. as our senator. And a lot of these, this guy pictured here, his name is Robert La Follette. He's nicknamed Fighting Bob because he's going to come up with a lot of these proposals to change how we vote and how we do things. And we've got 2 amendments we'll talk about for voting. So the 17th Amendment, voting for senators, and then the 19th Amendment gives the last group of people the right to vote. Who's left? Who's last? Yeah, women are the last ones to get the right to vote in 1920. I don't know if I said it yesterday, maybe I did. What ends up giving women that extra little kick to be like, yeah, they should be able to have the right to vote, especially if they can help during this
War.
Which one?
Three.
World War I.
One.
There hasn't been a 3 yet.
No, that's what I said.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
You got jokes?
Apparently not that good. You didn't laugh.
No. No.
She was like,
No. No, didn't like that one. Okay, here we go. Moving on. All right, now we've only got a couple other things that I want to look at before we move on for today. But of course, hitting on our voting is nope, I'll hold on to that. Here it is. Voting rights for women. All right, 19th Amendment. You need to know that we just celebrated the centenary 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. It was passed in 1920. So 19th Amendment, 1920, again, don't forget suffrage means to vote, even though it just sounds like it just means something horribly. But women are the last to get the right to vote. And we've got these ladies to thank: Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Stone. During the election back in November, a lot of people were wearing purple because that was the color for suffragists, pushing for the right to vote. And a lot of people went and paid homage to Susan B. Anthony and went to her gravestone. And, you know, it was kind of sad because of all years that they didn't give out the I voted stickers. Everybody was leaving their I voted pins in memory of her pushing for women to get the right to vote. Now, I really hate that under normal circumstances, I love movies, and I have a really good movie clip, and if we have time, I will try my best to show it if it'll work. But it's called Iron Jawed Angels, and it shows Lucy Stone and all that she goes through in trying to push for the 19th Amendment. She's picketing the White House of President Wilson, trying to encourage him to ratify the amendment. Well, they go and they take her to her and others to a women's workhouse for picketing the White House, because yes, they are picketing during World War I. A lot of people get really upset that they're doing that. It is a time of war. I understand that, but they're also trying to pinpoint how much women are doing to help during World War I. But anyway, so they take her to a women's workhouse, and while she's in there, she's trying to make a statement. And she goes on a hunger strike. And they're like, we are not letting this woman die while she's in here for a cause. And so they go, they had her in solitary confinement. They go and they strap her down, and they get a couple of raw eggs, and they get it's not really a feeding tube by what we know today as, but it's this huge plastic tube, and they like shove it down her throat. And they pour, I can't even say it. It makes me sick thinking about it. They pour those, the raw eggs.
Ew.
They pour them down her throat to try and get her to eat something so she won't pass out and die because she's
They were
on this hunger
aggressive back
strike.
then.
Yeah, and so of course she's trying to breathe at the same time. They got this pipe in her throat, and so as soon as they pour it down and they yank it out of her throat, she ends up just throwing everything back up anyways. But they do this to her like twice a day for like a week. It was like a horrible situation, and she's writing her story of what's happening to her. And she ends up being able to get the slips of paper that she's writing her story on out to the newspaper. And they lose their minds when they find out what they're doing to her inside this women's workhouse. It's crazy.
I would like, for real, probably end up in jail because I would kill somebody.
I just, and I can't, because they show it in that scene. And I can't. Oh God, I can't. I mean, it makes me dry heave just thinking about it. I can't. If I can get that clip, we'll watch it. Okay. So anyway, it's an interesting movie. Yeah, it's just yeah. But all of these changes and up in Sarah Claire's book is coming into fruition into what we have today as the Food and Drug Act, the Pure Food and Drug, the Meat Inspection Act. I mean, think about it. If you go to the grocery store today, whether it's a box of cereal, whether it's hamburger, even if it's just vitamins or candy, what all information is on that package? All right, ingredients. What else? What else? Labels. Nutrition facts. What else?
Serving size.
Serving size. Anything else?
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot of information, right? Like all the information that is on there because we said you as the consumer should know what is going into your food that you are consuming.
Sometimes they have like a backstory of like about some labels have like of like where it came from and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we have more information about what we are getting and purchasing today than ever before. You know, we read that poem the other day, you know, about Mary's Little Lamb. When she got sick, they just shipped it off to Packington. They labeled it chicken because they could, because you didn't have to actually be honest about what it is that you're consuming. I mean, that's not a good thing,
That's
but it's
like
the
when you're
truth.
young and your parents are trying to get you to eat something and they just say it's chicken.
Yeah, I do pull that one. Yeah, I pull that one too. I am guilty.
Chicken, just eat
It's
it.
meat, eat it.
Yeah, I am guilty of sometimes not telling the truth. Okay. All right. Let's stop there because we've got more stuff to do today. So here's what I want you to do. Now the IDs are, yeah. That list of IDs, you're defining those terms on your own so that we can do that other stuff together because we don't have time to do all of it. And I figure you can handle doing some definitions over, unless you would rather do the project packet yourself. You can.
I have most of
You
the
can.
ideas done anyway.
Okay, all right, so we've got 2 things we're gonna do. 2 things. All right, get your guided reading packets, chapter 15, 15-1, guided reading packet. We're gonna do this first.
I'll go ahead and, get a paper so I can just write it down.
Do you want both? Or
I have the project, I just need to,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so let's go over 15-1. There are a few that we're gonna skip, and again, if we skip it, you do not have to go back and do it. Just keep that in mind. Yes. Not a problem. All good. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. Section 1 says the rise of progressivism. All right, let's see, which ones do I want to do? Let's go ahead and do A. A says, what 2 factors did progressives believe had caused the nation's social problems? Money is definitely one. Money. Alcohol abuse is another that was leading to social problems. It just says 2. That's fine. Money and alcohol abuse, again, that's going to lead us to putting in the 18th Amendment. All right, B. Who were among the first to articulate progressive ideas? It is your white middle class Americans. That's your answer. White middle class Americans. This seems to be the group that's not held on, they don't have strings attached. So white middle class Americans. All right, C says, what were some issues targeted by muckrakers? Yeah, meat processing, yes. So yeah, meat process or food inspection, however you want to word it. Big business and politics were the other ones. Big business, politics, meat inspection. All right, in section 2, we're going to do some skipping around. Section 2 is about reforming government. Let's skip down to, let's just do C and D in section 2. All right, C says, what did Robert La Follette pressure the Wisconsin legislature to do? Voting reforms. That's what we're going to put. Voting reforms.
Which one is that? A or
Let's see.
C.
C?
Yeah, we skipped A and B. So C is voting reforms. All right, D, what reform did progressives target at the federal level? So 17th Amendment, and direct primaries. All right, section 3 was suffrage. What do we say suffrage means? To vote. Good. Suffrage means to vote. Good. All right, A, why did the suffrage movement get off to a slow start? So what do we say is the last group to get the right to vote? Women. So why? Why would it get off to a slow start?
Because it was wasn't only white male that could vote first. No.
Well, by that point in time, all men could vote. But why are they not jacked up about letting women get the right to vote? Thought that women didn't have a place in politics? I mean, yeah, there's a lot that you can say about that. We'll make sure that we're saying it in a very nice way so I don't have to trip any of y'all in the hallway later. But they thought that women did not have a place in politics. All right, B, we're not going to put 2 reasons. We'll put just one. What was a reason the suffrage movement started making significant gains around 1910? Women were needed in the workforce. All right, so women were needed in the workforce. And C, what amendment, tell me the number, what amendment guarantees women the right to vote? Try one more time. 19th. All right, and last but not least, section 4, reforming society. We're only going to do A. We're not going to do the other 2. So what new law is going to come into effect because of such writings as the bitter cry of the children? It is child labor laws. Child labor laws, because we don't think it's a good idea to have little 4- and 5-year-olds running around. Child labor laws. All right, so hit the pause button on that one. Now we're going to go to your progressive project packet. Okay, so this is the last thing that we're going to work on for today. I think we talked about it as a group, but I want to make sure that my online people hear me say this too, that we're only doing certain pieces, okay? And there's one piece that you're going to do on your own. Part 1, we're going to do some questions together. Part 2, that says the chart, you're just going to mark out part 2. We're not doing part 2, so number 2 you can mark out. We are going to do part 3 that has crossword puzzles and political cartoons. We're not going to do number 4, so you can mark out number 4. We're not doing the timeline. But you are, oh, here you go. Yep. That was my fault. I should have made sure you had it. All right, now number 5 at the bottom is the only piece I'm going to make you do by yourself. I know, mean Miss Walker. But we're going to modify it, okay? So number 5 at the bottom says you're going to evaluate who was the best progressive president and why. So between now and Thursday, we're going to talk about Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson. And by Thursday, hopefully you will have a decision as to who you think was the best progressive president out of those 3. So here's what you have to do. We're not doing what it says. You are going to pick one of those presidents, but you're only going to write a half-page response as to who you think was the best. Okay. So we are modifying that. Number 5 or part 5 is the only one you're doing by yourself. Okay. So today we're going to do 2 things together. We're going to answer a couple of the questions in section 1 together. And then we're going to do a couple of crossword questions together. Yay! Okay. All right. So again, when we go through these questions on that first page, we're skipping around. We're not doing all of them. So only do the ones that we do together, unless you want to do more. And if you do, then go right ahead.
You want us to do it on here or on the separate?
That is up to you. Either way, I don't care.
On the doc?
If that's how you want to do it, that's fine. If you want to write on here, that's fine. Whatever floats your boat. Okay. We're going to skip around and we're going to start with, let's see. I wish they were numbered. They're not numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go to the 5th question down, and that's where we're going to start. The 5th question down says, what did the Meat Inspection Act and Pure Food and Drug Act do? That's the one we're going to start with, okay? Put rules and restrictions. Put rules and restrictions on how food is processed. Put rules and restrictions on how food is processed. All right, go to the next question below that. Which amendments were passed? And it's talking about which amendments are passed during this time period. And it's 4, all right, 16, 17, 18, and 19, right? All 4. 16, 17, 18, and 19. Those are the amendments that are passed. What caused the progressive movement? The need for change. That's what it is. That's your answer. The need for change. We're actually just going to keep doing the ones right below it. All right, the next says, who was Jane Addams and what did she discuss? She was the first social worker. Helping women and children. All right, next, hopefully you remember this guy. Who was Booker T. Washington? He was a reformer. So put reformer, and then part 2 to that wants to know what did he think blacks needed to do to gain equality? And so reformer, comma, better jobs. That's your answer. Reformer, comma, better jobs. Because he said fight for economic equality first. So he said, you know, get those better jobs and then we'll start working on other issues. All right, next is W.E.B. Du Bois. So here again, he is a reformer. And then part 2 is what did he think blacks needed to do to gain equality? And he said fight for all rights. So reformer, comma, fight for all rights. All right, we're actually going to skip that next question because we're going to talk about that later. We're not talking about right now. All right, after that, it says, what were 3 different areas that progressives wanted to change or improve, and give an example of each one. So just list it out. This doesn't have to be in sentence form, just list it out. So you can put politically, and we'll just put a recall as an example. So politically dash recall, that's an example. Socially, we can put get rid of alcohol. And let's see. What do we say already? Politically, socially, economically will be our third one. Economically, in monopolies. We'll put in monopolies for politically. That was economically, right? Yeah, economically. End monopolies. All right, let's do 2 more, and then we're going to do some in the crossword puzzle. All right, what was the Clayton Antitrust Act? Ended monopolies. Write that down. Ended monopolies. And we'll do one more. I haven't decided. We might do some more questions tomorrow, but for today, we'll stop with what happened with the election of 1912. There were 5 candidates from different parties. I mean, this was a crazy election, and there's no easy way for me to summarize this, but there were 5 candidates running for that election. 5 candidates. And Wilson won. I do want you to put that. Wilson won. Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N. Wilson won. But it was a pretty crazy election that we'll talk about later on this week. Okay. Do you guys have time and you can stay with me? We're going to go to the crossword puzzle. Crossword puzzle. Yay. All right, let's see how you do on the crossword puzzle. And we're going to bounce around. Why? Because I want to and I can. All right, let's do 18 across. 18 across. And I know this has been copied so many times that some of the numbers are kind of blurry. All right, 18 across. Can you tell which one is that?
Is that
The
one,
one at the
one next to
bottom.
14?
It's right there.
It's like close to the bottom.
Yeah, it's not the very last, but the one above it across. If that made any sense. All right, 18 across says the blank, which is a book about the meat packing plant. What was the name of his book? Upton Sinclair's book. It was called The Jungle. Nobody remembers that?
No, I remember it being right there, but I forgot.
All right, jungle for 18. Just write down jungle. 18 across is jungle. $18 across is jungle. 20, I just told you who the winner of the 1912 election is. 20. Yeah, 20 across is Wilson, and that's the very last across at the bottom. 20 across is Wilson. Let's do which one do I want? We'll go ahead and do 19 across. 19 across, the topic of the 16th Amendment. So if you work a part-time job, this tax comes out of your paycheck. Name a tax that comes out of your paycheck. What?
You said name a tax?
Name, like name, N-A-M-E, name a tax. That's not the actual name of the answer.
Oh.
I was trying to get you to tell me the answer.
Oh.
If you have a part-time job, what kind of tax comes out of your paycheck?
What am I? There's like a health.
No, that's not it. Keep guessing.
State.
No, keep guessing. What other taxes come out of your paycheck?
If I could have my pencil pulled up, I like that with them.
Nope.
I don't know.
Income tax.
Oh.
Income tax, people. Income tax. So the answer is income tax for 19 across. I-N-C-O-M-E-T-A-X, income tax. Y'all are making this much harder than it is. All right, let's do, which one do I want? Oh, you should know 7 down. 7 down is an easy one. 7 down, to remove an elected official from office is called what? No.
No, I don't know.
To vote and remove somebody from office. We just talked about it. It's on your list of IDs. It's a recall. Recall.
We already said that one.
Yeah, but you didn't say it
Confident.
confidently as the answer. So
We
7
don't know yet.
down is recall.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what I'm not smart in.
Oh, come on.
Honestly, I got it now. Now that I've been embarrassed and didn't know it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll do one more. Let's do, okay, what about 16 across? Trying to preserve natural wildlife and beauty. What is that called? If you're trying not to waste, you're not, you don't want to mess up stuff.
Recycling.
Okay, are you recycling wildlife though?
Maybe. That depends on. That
Oh,
depends.
my
That's the meat.
goodness.
That's the meat.
If you're trying to preserve something, conservation, for 16 across, CONSERVATION, conservation.
Which one? Is that one above like 18 and 19?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. All right, that was painful. Let's stop there for today. Okay, online people, is everybody good? Any questions before I let you go? Yep. Okay, all right. Happy Tuesday. Bye-bye.